John, it's your studio.
Welcome.
My clock, thank you. Would you like to hold the clock?
Thank you very much.
Bear it in.
Yep.
This is where you spend...
Like carrying the communion wafers or some other processional experience in my childhood.
Not quite so ceremonial, but...
I don't know, it feels pretty ceremonial.
This is where you spend a lot of your time.
Some of my time.
Some of your time.
Yeah.
John, would you be happy to count us down?
Yes.
Here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off.
Quick fire round to start with. Do you have a favourite author?
Doris Cairns Goodwin.
Do you have a favourite book?
Lincoln Team of Rivals.
Do you have a favourite poet?
Seamus Heaney.
Do you have a favourite composer?
Tough. Herbert Howells.
Of all the arts, which do you enjoy the most?
Painting.
Do you paint yourself?
I do.
Can you tell me about the ties? How many different ties do you have in your wardrobe?
Probably about 100. I mean, as fast as they come in, they go out, because people like them for charity auctions and things.
And the socks?
The socks, look, there are two things a man can do to improve on a suit. One is the tie and the other is the socks. And I like to do both.
Do you deliberately use exciting ties and socks in order to look distinctive?
No, I do it because I think men look very boring in suits. And so far, we haven't reached a point where men don't wear suits to read news.
What is the scoop that you're proudest of?
The secret legal advice of the Attorney General on going to war with Iraq.
What's the most embarrassing moment you've ever had on air?
Being live in the studio, a story screwed up, and we had to immediately go to an interview with 3 politicians sitting in Westminster. I knew 2 of them. I had to take a guess at the middle one. I said he came from the back benches. He was the junior Minister for Trade.
Do you ever freeze on air?
No.
Are you as excited doing the news now as you were when you started?
I'm more excited now because I can do it better.
What's the best thing about doing the news?
The best thing is really being one pair of eyes, observing events and then recounting them to another pair of eyes. You're speaking one person to one person, not one person to 1 million people.
What's the hardest thing about doing the news?
Speaking to one person.
To what extent do you write your own cues?
I write the top of the programme, some of the other bits, but not all of them.
If you didn't get to do the interviews off the back of the stories, would you do what you do?
I wouldn't be a newsreader, no.
How do you prepare for your...
I'm a journalist. I like journalism. I like digging about. I like inquiring, and I like telling stories.
How do you prepare for your interviews, your big interviews?
Big interviews, sort of read around them, listen to the radio, listen to previous interviews, etc. But more than anything, avoid preparing set questions, because they'll be so good that I'll be not listening to the interview but waiting to ask the next brilliant question. And the real thing about interviewing is not asking questions but listening to answers.
Do you think that the 24-hour news culture, rolling bulletins, is healthy?
Well, I don't think it really matters whether it is or it isn't, because I just don't think many people participate in it. There aren't that number of people who actually watch or listen to 24-hour news.
How do you get your news in the morning?
Radio.
What do you think is
Radio is the best medium on earth.
What do you think is the big news story of the day? And by the day, I don't mean today.
Well, I think I couldn't deny that if I were a Martian journalist looking in, I would say, here is a planet which is plentiful in its food and it's unable to feed all its people.
Who is your favourite Newsnight presenter?
Peter Snow. He towers above all of them.
Who is your favourite current Newsnight presenter?
Well, Jeremy Paxman.
What did you want to be when you were a little boy growing up?
I wanted to be a Conservative MP.
And then, after that, when that didn't happen or that proved like it was unlikely?
I went through a mad phase of wanting to be a barrister. But as I got thrown out of my law course, I didn't get there.
Where were you doing your law course?
Liverpool University.
Why did you get thrown out of your law course?
I was involved in a sit-in against the university's investments in apartheid South Africa.
How did you get into journalism in the first place? What was your big break?
My big break was that there was an ad in the New Statesman for new staff for the first commercial radio station, which is called LBC. I had been working as a social worker in a day centre for homeless kids. They thought I'd be good at dealing with people who were too mad to go on air for the phone-ins. But in actual fact, you had to be mad to go on air for a phone-in anyway, so there was nothing for me to do. So they asked me to read news instead.
What are your passions or your interests outside of doing the news?
My passions are tennis, which I love playing, most unpredictable game on earth, music, and painting.
And after you've done the news in the evening, how do you wind down at home?
I wind down by winding my feet around my cycle cogs, and you get home really quite reasonable. You've wound it out, or out on your pedals.
Not long to go. How do you keep your personal views or politics out of the news?
You have to understand what your views are and then offset them and ensure that you achieve balance.
And that, Jon Snow,
Is 5 minutes. Gosh, it goes in a flash.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for doing it.
Been a great pleasure. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank
very
you.
much.